Phew. I guess that was my cue to stop playing. I'm blowing my nose. So now that Jean and Joan are both gone from this world, I feel like it's time for Tommie to tell at least her siblings and their children what Jean and Joan Wasserberg looked like to them, to me, from the time I was born. And I'm not going to be challenging the will, but my brother and sister-in-law, or my sister and brother-in-law, over something else, may find themselves with a subpoena in their laps because of the doctored film that they saw. But anyway, to give some homage to my guru, Swami X, I was born down the street from a traffic light. He was born under a stop sign. I was born down the street from a traffic light. Actually, I was born in a hospital that no longer exists on the south side. As a result of a long line that my father laid on my mother, and on Valentine's Day, probably, of 1954. I don't remember my mother feeding me. I remember being brought home from the hospital in the car, the backseat of the car, and handed to the Schwartz, whose name was Esther. And Esther fed me and bathed me, changed my diapers. I don't really remember either one of my parents ever doing that for me. I never said much of anything until I was almost 3 years old, I guess. I don't know. I'll have to look at the baby book to see. There's not much there. They didn't keep it going very long because I wasn't what they thought I was. I was about 15 months old when I was told that I needed to go to the hospital and have some surgery done on me to fix a double inguinal hernia. And one of my father's besties, he had three. Bunny Blumenthal, Lenny Grevere, and Hyman Lands, Dr. Hyman Lands, the surgeon. Dr. Kunsta, I don't know who ordered the surgery or why. Possibly it was Dr. Kunstadter because I saw notes about lumps in my chart when I was old enough to read it. And he left it laying around for me to read. Lumps as in internal testicles. Uncle High made two lateral incisions right across the top, right at the, just right at the pubic mound, and to descend the testicles, and turned the funny looking scrotum into it's more like a big ass clit and a blind vagina, with improperly differentiated shit in between. Um, all that in my testicles, which weren't properly differentiated into ovaries. Apparently, I was what was called pseudo-hermaphroditic. But I was assigned male at birth, and internal testicles, zips off, which caused a lot of damage to my urogenital system and totally changed the chemistry of my hormones because the scrotum is a couple of degrees cooler than inside. And that's resulted in a whole array of medical deficiencies, behavioral health issues that were compounded by being forced into a unnatural gender role. I think that they're trying to, you're schizophrenic. I said, no. I think more properly, if you want to diagnose me with something I agree with, it's opposition defiance disorder, coupled with PTSD and the gender dysphoria. I don't take orders. Ask me nicely and I'll do it. Tell me to do it. Fuck off. And this was an issue with my, I never, because I couldn't be me. It's like, okay, well, you're gonna need to be. I'm not gonna do what you order me to do if it's not making sense. And so if we back up a little bit, let's back up to my great grandparents because I'm claiming indigeneity on this continent, that my people came here as refugees and have in good faith lived according to the Constitution of the United States community contract and have prospered here. I'm about to receive somewhere between 130,000 and 150,000 in cash, and no telling what's going to come back out of the art, but I'm being told that everything's been gifted off to others, which is an issue for me that I could sue because I got none of it. They're like, oh, what do you want? Well, let me look at the leftovers after the cream's been given away. So there's a problem, but then it's the morality of the complaint is beneath what I want to be, the me that I want to be. They never let me be me as I felt myself to be. So now that they're both gone, I'm me. I'm Tommie. I'm Tommie Jane. I'm not a woman and I'm not a man. I prefer she or her because my male aspect is extremely unpleasant. Tom will kill. If Tom needs to kill, Tom will kill. I don't want to be Tom. I don't want anybody's blood on my hands for any reason. And I've made a lot of sacrifices in my life to get to this point without having killed my parents or my siblings or their children, without having hurt anybody, without ever even thinking about killing myself. I've been like, okay, you're promised healing, and I'm going with that. And I've been the best me I could possibly be and made a lot of sacrifices to avoid committing sins that would definitely harm my chances of my dream being fulfilled. Now, I've gotten to a point in my life where the best I can hope for as a transgender person in this generation, I'm living that dream. I'm living in a city where we're part of the landscape. Nobody gives a shit. If they read me as male and I say that I'm not, they apologize for doing it. When I do explain myself, I get no argument about it. I'm obviously not a man or a woman, and very androgynous and much more pleasant in the female mode. It's clear. It's very obvious. Um, and where was I and what was I going with that? Oh, they never saw me as me, and now they're gone, and I'm me. And I don't feel like I want to bicker over uh, the material things that my parents collected. $150,000 between Michael and them, and I'm set for life with a piece of land and a good vehicle forever. That's fine. I don't need anything else. I don't want anything else. I don't want any part of anybody who's going to see me as a mentally ill male, especially if they're blood relatives. And apparently, I don't know yet if my father had deceived me, but we'll get to that later. We're starting from the other end. I was brought home to 512 Berry Avenue, which was my grandfather's estate. Very large house, Victorian house, um, with my aunt and her two children living on the second floor, and Dr. Gravere and his family living in the basement, and me and my brother and a dog living above the garage in the coach house with Esther, our maid. I don't remember if she lived with us then. She lived in at 533 in the maids' quarters, which was a suite. It was a private bedroom and bathroom that was specifically for the servants, right by the back door, between the back door and the kitchen. It was the servants' quarters. I ended up with that room when my brother couldn't stand being anywhere near me anymore. We shared a bedroom on Roscoe Street. I couldn't stand him being, they used to hit me every day. He and his friends. You got to have your daily punch. My dad spanked me often, spanked us all often, but not very much, just often. Um, not very hard either, just often, and me more often than anybody else. Mom would swat us with an open hand until we got too big for that, and she was hurting her hand. Then she'd make a list and save it for Dad when he got home, which sometimes wasn't for 2 weeks because he was on the road. It's always, oh, nice to see you, Dad. Drop your drawers. But my father, for all his bullshit, and he even at the end of his life, he admitted to me that he knew he was an insufferable asshole. My aunt called him the pompous ass, but then he called her Barbara Knows All. She was a phlebotomist and a naturist, agnostic naturist, and well-studied woman and outspoken, and they get into it, some fierce, and the relationship between them all got real ugly when my grandparents died, and they had to dissolve that state, and I guess right before that, Jean had gotten Henry and Irwin, my grandfather, into a bad deal that cost them all a lot of money, and then Dad went and blamed it on Henry forever. On a more positive note, back then in the 50s when we were living on Berry, on Tuesday evenings, I think it was, Hugh Hefner held court for folks they had some kind of Tuesday night, high-powered business jam meeting at the Playboy Mansion downtown, that he used to go with our neighbor Bert Zolo, who was the man who lent Hefner the money he needed to publish the first month of Playboy. And my dad was the one who um, brought him one of our designers did up the Playboy bunny costume, the original Playboy bunny costume, and we had that contract at Cabo, and I think he brought it to Blair until they lost it when they went into the second generation into a different design. Somebody else got it. Um, his dad used to call himself a structural engineer because he was he was a sales manager for foundation garment manufacturing. And then when our family business was folded down, um, he moved in with somebody else in the same kind of a situation, and they diversified, getting into custom racing sales, and duffel bags and tents, and they picked up several haute couture designers as well. Um, One named Norrico got them all a spread with Victor Scribneski. That's somewhere I should dig out um, those photos. I have a few from parties at the house from that period that they sent me when Dad died. Um, but Dad was very pompous and arrogant and overbearing with his family. I don't know how he was with he was probably much more. I know in public he was much more of a raconteur and shining light in the middle of a crowd that people like to listen to. Um, he spoke at the Rotary for many years at the end of his life. After he retired up to Wapaka, that was his main gig was public speaking. He was involved in conservation stuff with the city of Wapaka and the lake he lived on. And, he'd been involved with conservation stuff from the time we were little. He was a very avid bass fisherman who was part of the early catch and release bass tournament fishing with the big high powered boats. Um, and so they did a lot of you know building of habitat, planting of trees and cinder blocks and old tires and stuff like that to make habitat for bass. Um, yeah, clearing stuff, all that kind of stuff. He was into that. Um, and the family were always patrons of the arts. Um, Dad never. My grandfathers were of this. Well, let's back all. Oh yeah, let's go back all the way up to Julius. I call myself a Gershonite Cohen. My mother's family are the Cohenim. Um, and her maternal grandfather was the last of the what's called Haredim or Frumoyeds in our family on her side. And he was gone by the time I was old enough to, sit at the Seder table, for instance. He was still alive when I was born, but by the time I was old enough to know my great grandfather, he was gone. And my maternal grandfather, Erwin Kaufman, um, was from an industrialist reform German family. So as soon as Rudolph Levin passed away, he made Grandma Belle break the extra dishes, and it's like, we're done. No more of that. And over the years, it's like, you know, the Levins were like 9 kids, right? And Belle was the youngest or second youngest. She and Marion were the youngest too. Marion was married to Max Lowenberg, who was distinguished architect and engineer who served under George Patton as a battalion commander in the Third Army. And they were big patrons of the arts, big patrons, big donors to the opera and orchestra and National Geographic and stuff like that. And we enjoyed a lot of their subscriptions when they didn't feel like going. Mom would take me when I was a little kid when the orchestra seats when Grandma and Aunt Marion and them didn't want to go. Mom would take me, and boy, I'd just bury myself under her fur coat and be visualizing myself in the future. And I had vivid dreams of childbirth and keeping a house in the exurbia, well out of town, 60, 80 miles out of town in a nice rural setting, a whole farmhouse with a creek and a barn and all that happy shit. And because of that, this is when I'm between 4 and 8, and they're telling me, no, you can't be a girl. And I'm dreaming of myself as a girl. So it's like, no, you're not telling me something that's real. Something's wrong here. And by the time I was 10 or so, I'd found Christine Jorgensen's autobiography and learned about what was going on with me. But I couldn't, because of my dreams and because I was a smart little kid, I could see that this was not going to repair me to do what she had done. And they're still not anywhere near it. When they can't, they're just barely I think they've had some successful transplants into cis females, uterus transplants, but I don't think they've even tried it with a trans woman yet. Trans people are meeting each other and making babies, just reverse the yeah. It's kind of like it's like where the father carries the child and the mother nurses the child, takes care of the child once the child's born, has the mother. And then the father's done being the mother and turns into the father of the child. And there's several trans couples that have appeared in the last 10 years or so like that. And that's my prayer at this point, is for me to be reborn into my family and raised properly and meet a trans boy in school and get married and do all that. That's my dream and my prayer. But I got this work that needs to be done here with my siblings, my spirit siblings. I know so many of them, and they keep appearing. The better me I put out to the world, the more that my kindred spirit find me and find their own awakenings. And the game's nearly over. We won. There's, God told Abraham that for only 10 righteous people, he would spare Sodom and Gomorrah. Now you gotta understand about what the ancient myths were talking about in terms of interplanetary competition for the resources of this world. Okay? So my family claims to be Earth native, and we mark our journey cut off from the space traveling, the space Jews, with the birth of Adam 5,780 some odd years ago. Okay, so now we're claiming that Lord Yehovah is the master of the local universe, and that his mate is Shekinah, who gives us, he gives us the energy from his energy from the sun, and his mate gives us her spirit. She gives us our blood and bones and skin. And together they are the universal Godhead, they're running right through all of us. And the Tara and Mishnah Tara are a chronicle of this family of Adam coming down through Noah, then Abraham, then Jacob. Okay, so here you've got this race, this national genome injected into the population, along with this theory for how to live righteously, that we've been protecting all these years and trying not to misinterpret, just talking about it a lot, discussing it a lot, whole lot. There's unbroken oral and written tradition from Sinai of the witness of the miracles in the desert that the space Jews did. Uh, just look at this shit, flying chariots and flaming swords and shit like that. It's like, come on, that's high tech. That's just high tech stuff. That's nothing miraculous, nothing supernatural. That's just high tech shit. And it was primitive people describing it. This is the way I was taught by Dr. Binstock. This is the way he told us to look at it. Elohim is the universal unknowable God. You're just like, okay, there's the rules for the physical universe. Everything works according to these rules, and it really doesn't give a shit about us personally. I question how much shit that Yehovah and his minions and his collaborator, or whatever you want to call him in the book of Job, and fucking over Job's life. But they're both still doing that shit to all of us. This is like it's an intelligence test, I guess the way it works is that, like, Hades, Satan, whatever you're gonna call him, is like in charge of the interior life forms in the molten core of the world, and Yehovah is in charge of the garden on the surface, and there's some contention over who gets to control what. I guess between them, I don't know how that works. I'm just a little mortal thing that got thrown in here just for the fun of it for this generation, right? And there's lots of us, sleepers. Is what we are. We're this little genetic sleeper of children of the ancients that are like, oh shit, here we are. And it's really been it's been such a, I don't know, I'm looking for the right word here as far as the people, the souls that have connected with me over the years, and where we've connected and how we've connected, and things they've taught me and things they've learned from me, and just like, we're here, this is it, we're in the garden. We gotta live like we're in the garden. We gotta protect it, and we gotta do what we're supposed to be doing in the garden to each other and to ourselves and to all the plants and animals and minerals. And the rainbow hippies got that message, and the Native American people never lost it. The indigenous people of the world who are still living according to traditional lifestyles never fucking lost it. We were all here before the industrialization, and we'll all still be here after the planet wipes that shit out if they don't reconcile it to the natural world in this decade. This is all they've got left. I've been part of this, as a student and as somebody who wanted to work in ecosystem engineering for 50 years. Okay? MIT, NASA, they're famous studies from the 70s that's pointed to this decade as the tipping point, as the point of no return, before the climate would become so unstable that huge parts of the world would be uninhabitable for humans without serious life support systems, synthetic life support systems. Level 4 laboratories. Some places are going to be so toxic that you won't be able to breathe anything unless you're in something like they got at Wuhan. And a lot of people's homes are going to need to either be able to float or be waterproof. Lots of them, billions of people. Your house better be able to float or be waterproof. Excuse me. And if you live close to a volcano, you're going to need air filters. I'm sorry. I'm a horrible person. I'm laughing on the night my mother died. Okay? This is. I'm Tommie. I'm that deaf, dumb, and blind kid that Who was singing about. Growing up, I survived. I walk around and, I'll walk around in a crowd with my eyes closed because I can feel everybody around me. We are all telepathic and empathic. We are all able to astral project if we do not allow ourselves to be fear conditioned into doubting what we're experiencing and be forced into accepting the reality of this plane, which is all illusion. Every last bit of it's illusion. And, we have this illusion of self-identity that's distinct from the Elohim oneness, the universal oneness. We have this illusion of self that's not really real. It's just what's in this little mortal flesh shell, this quivering sac of protoplasm. And it's kind of an illusion anyway. It's kind of congealed energy or something. I don't know. You're getting way out into the esoteric shit and the hardcore physics. And I'm more of a zoologist and botanist and biochemist. I play with, like nerd that plays with things. I like to know about things. I'm a learning magnet. I'm a sponge. My brain's got a sponge for knowledge. And this is why I play music. I haven't really worked at it very hard since my accident in 1999. But up until then, I was very much like serious about it, playing 6-8 hours a day, and playing off of sheets, running exercises off of sheets and standards and stuff. 6-8 hours a day for a long time until I had my accident. I'm getting back to playing I play at least 15 minutes a day, something. I just need that to keep my head from exploding. And everybody should, sing or play a musical instrument, especially wind instruments, every day as part of your exercise routines, which is something I need to get to. I never do routine. I'm a dancer, and I'd limber up and I'd go at it. And sometimes I'd be doing a combat dance, and sometimes I'd just be doing a happy dance. I can't anymore. I'm broken. I hope I can. I hope I'm not broken that badly that I can't get it repaired. I'm stiff in the joints. I'm not able to stretch. I'm not able to bend over. My wrist is wrecked. My jaw is everything from here up, right there, from here all the way up to here. I don't know if you can see it, but I can sure feel it all the time. There's always at least a level 1 pain reminding me that this is fucked up from here to here. Um, I need to purify. I need to quit smoking completely. Weed too. I need to start eating that. Um, Finally be able to afford to. And I hope I've attracted crew. Um, God, I should, no, I'll do that some other time. Just amazing. I don't even want to talk about it right here and now. It's just that, oh my God, are you serious? You experienced that? Which comes back to me and Jean and Joan and Betty and Jerry. Is that all the trauma that I experienced at the hands of my family and doctors amounts to nothing compared to some of the things that people I meet along the way had experienced at the hands of their families and their doctors. You know, what happened to me as for an intersex person that was cut on, for instance, didn't make anywhere near as big a mess as me as a lot of other people I've heard their stories. Um, oh God, that one. But anyway, back to Jean and Joan. Um, I had thought, well, yeah, let's just run it back to where they decided, let's just run it all the way back to my sister's first birthday party. The day before, I was taken to the barber shop for my first buzz cut. And then dressed up in a little silly blue sailor suit. When I had thought, living in this extended family household, I was going to get my cousin's pink dress handed down to me and my hair done. Up until then, all they'd done was snip it. They just trimmed it. And they've got little trimmings, little bits of trimmings in envelopes in my baby book. But the day before my sister's birthday, it was time to start turning me into a man. And up until then, I had no idea that I wasn't a girl. And I thought I was helping my mom with my new baby sister. And next thing I know, I'm getting dragged off to the barbershop with my head shaved and stuffed into this fucking stupid looking sailor suit. I cried for a week. And got all the usual shit. Oh, you need something to cry. Girls don't have, girls don't have penises. Boys only cry when they bleed. And if you need something to cry about, here, we'll be glad to beat the crap out of you. So I shut up. But by the time I was eight or nine or so, about 7, 8, I was starting to get big enough to fight back. I mean, up until then, it had just been tantrums and breaking stuff. But now I could hit back. And they decided to start doping me then. Some shit. Atarax, I think it was. And when I was 15, it was getting really ugly between me and my father. And wrestling matches and pounding on me and shit. And he came at me one day in my room with a belt buckle. And I just snapped and I caught the belt buckle in my right hand and clocked him with my left and popped his cheek bone. Then a couple of years later, a couple of months, weeks, I don't know how much later, it was soon after, he was chasing me up the front stairs and tried to tackle me and missed and fell and broke his ankle. And that was it. That was about 1969, 1970. And he'd had enough. I was no longer welcome in his home. And my aunt took me in. And I was only home on the weekends. And when I graduated high school, I was pushed right out of the house, made to get a job and get an apartment. Um, and then when I graduated college, I was allowed back in the house for a couple of weeks, and was pushed out. Fortunately, I found, or she found me actually, Cindy Nelson, my first live-in lover. She found me. She was jogging in Lincoln Park, and I was in the underpass at Berry Avenue blowing my horn, and we talked a lot then. And then I ran into her again walking between her apartment and her work on Broadway, and she was coming home from work. And instead of going home, we walked all the way around the neighborhood one time, and she took me home. And that lasted about a year. I don't want to go into detail about any of this right now. Um, I had a series, I had high school honey. Um, got laid by a couple of different sisters in college. Um, I was with my high school honey through my first 2 years of college, and then when I went away, there were a couple of women I got it on with it. Tampa, and there were a couple of women I got it on with at the University of Texas. Probably the best one I ever had was one that picked me up when I was working before I went to U Texas. I was still in the tropical fishing industry, working at a place called Myers Wagner. I forget Meyer. Both. Oh yeah, Meyer was on Belmont. It was Wagner's tropical fish wholesale. And you got to picture a room full of fish tanks stacked, three high, one low, middle, top, right? With a few feet, good solid 18 inches between them, because you got to get in there with nets and shit. And the way it works is the fish come in boxes that might have 5,000 of them in there, and you put them up in the tanks, and then you pick the orders. Like say neon tetras, they'll sell them 100 at a time, and they come in thousands in a box, right? So you got to get in there with a net and count out 100 of them, and then it all gets packed up and shipped out. And then after everything's shipped out, the crew starts cleaning the tanks to get ready for the next shipment of fish coming in. So here I'd be cleaning a tank, and Lisa'd be a couple rows down, cleaning a tank on the lower side, wiggling her butt in my face. And it was like going on for a couple of days. It's like it seemed like every time I looked through the aisle, there she was with her ass crack showing and twerking at me. So I got up the courage to talk to her, and sure enough, she wanted to get laid. And she wanted nothing else but to get laid. Come over, we'll have dinner, watch my fish, and fuck. She's a former stripper or pole dancer. She was a former pole dancer. She told me in no uncertain terms the first time we got together, it's like, we're not falling in love. I don't want a husband. I don't want kids. I just want to have fun together. That's all. I like you. We have a lot in common. Let's fuck. Let's eat, fuck, and talk about fish. And I didn't, there was none of this like, hour or 2 hour phone calls and shit talking about how much you love each other and all that crap. And I could, go a couple of weeks after I wasn't working there anymore. I could go a couple of weeks without calling her, and then call her up on a Thursday and ask her if she was busy on the weekend. And she'd tell me, yeah, Friday or Saturday night she'd have open. So I'd go over one of the other nights if I hadn't talked to her at all for a couple of weeks. That was probably the best relationship I ever had. No strings, just good sex. She's the only woman I ever had. No, Cindy was pretty good at sex. and some of the hippies have been pretty good at sucking dick. But Lisa was the only one that really liked it. She was really good, and she enjoyed doing it. and and then she'd get me all fluffed up good, and then we would just like, I shouldn't be going into this right now. Anyway, where was I? We're Gene and Joan. We're at about 1980. With me at the University of Texas. Um, from that point on, I wasn't part of the family. They tolerated my presence some in the 90s when I was living in Chicago. Um, but it was always tense. Um, I was always tense because I was always on guard to not expose myself, as I had to consciously suppress innate feminine behavior. The way I moved, the way I talked, the way I touched myself. And I had to walk pigeon-toed for 6 months in high school because the bullies were sneaking up behind me and kicking me in the butt. And boy, they'd be aiming for my tailbone too hard, and it hurts when they hit it when they hit you square in the coccyx. Ooh, baby, that hurts for a fucking couple of days. Um, so here I am walking pigeon-toed to get the swish out of my gait. I had to force my voice down, which is why I won't force it back up. Um, I just, after 60 years living in the boy suit, it just didn't make sense to, just unzip it and walk away and then try to be all hyper femme all the time. Just sounds too dirty and hot for any of that. And wigs and corsets trigger my dysphoria. Or dysmorphia. Nah, I don't know. Dysmorphia, I got serious dysmorphia down here because of the surgery. It's just not the way it was should have. It didn't develop the way it was designed to develop because it got cut on. Same thing with up here, is my lymphatic system, my immune system didn't develop the way it was supposed to develop because it got cut on, the organs removed. And all the things they say happened. As far as I don't get respiratory infections so much because I have such constant chronic fucking runny nose and post nasal drip I gotta clear, that nothing can ever get a chance to get anchored in there. I'm always on it, and I'm always taking things for it, and eating a lot of ginger and garlic and cayenne and stuff. So I don't get respiratory ailments too much. But boy, get enough dust in the air, and I can't breathe at all. Um, and smoke will do me in pretty badly, which is why I shouldn't be smoking at all. Um, I don't. You'll notice that I usually am just sitting letting it burn, and when I do inhale it, I don't take it all the way down, or I don't hold it in at all, and it's in and out. Sometimes I'll just hold it in my mouth, but usually, usually it's more like waving it around, or I'll sit there typing with it with the ashes falling on the keyboard. Um, what else? Gene and Joan at that time, Mellis Jazz heyday, um, with the structural engineering and the haute couture. They were big social butterflies. They throw big dinner parties at their home. 10, five, 4, 5, 6 couples. I forget how many that dinner table, the dining table sat, was 3, 6. The dining table handled 8 easily, and without being expanded, and then it had leaves. It had 2 leaves that could be put in there, so you could put 4 more people at it. So there's 12 people at that table. A lot. Like at least once a month, that table got opened up for something. And sometimes the parties were so big, like on the holidays, we'd have to have extra tables in the dining room. Um, we had a live-in servant, Esther. I tell a story about Esther teaching me why you don't say nigger. Uh, she was giving me a bath. I blurted it out for some reason. I don't remember what the context was. And she just instantly just put my hand under the water and held me there until I'm gasping. Pulled it up, yelled at me, put me back down under again to make sure I remembered. And I I was talking about this with a black fellow from a homie I met in this group the other day. Is that back then it was okay. Everybody did it jokingly, calling people Sheeny and Mick and Dago and Wop and Spick and stuff like that. But the N word nobody used jokingly ever. Um, somebody was being funny about black people, they call them coon or jig or something like that. Nobody ever used the N word jokingly. Um, didn't really use the K word jokingly either. Sheeny maybe, but not kike. That's calling a person shit. Sheeny is just calling him a pig. And many Jews are sheenies. Of course, yeah, there's some kike Jews too. There's plenty of kike Jews. Just like there's plenty of like niggers. Um, but that for anybody to say that jokingly, that you better be black. There's no sanctioning white people to say nigger, except in circumstances like this, where I'm just talking about it, not talking to somebody, calling somebody it, or just talking about it. That's the only time that I will use it, unless somebody really pisses me off, and it's usually a white person I end up calling a nigger. Um, and really, more white people in my life I've known that were that way than black ones. I've known some really righteous, cool black people. Um, Fuck, I'm a musician. I've been to places. I used to go to what was the name of that place? Irving Park and Sheridan. Empire Imperial Empire Call Air. No, the Aragon's on. I forget the name of that club. It was just all black club. I walk in there, I'd be the only white face in the room. But it was cool. I didn't bother anybody, and nobody bothered me. I was there for the music. Um, I was, this guy was it was really cool meeting the guy because he grew up where my family and friends worked, um, down in what was called Jewtown by Roosevelt Road and Halstead, where Maxwell Street was. That's where he grew up, and his parents were. Uh, his mom was a nurse at County Hospital, and his dad was a postman, and they got their asses up out of the projects and into other neighborhoods. And like they had him up around Jarvis there for a while. They had a house up there, up the border between Chicago and Evanston, where a lot of blacks lived for a long time. Um, so it was real cool, comparing notes because like he's 35 years younger than me, so a lot had changed by the time he was a kid. Um, so sharing was really cool. The things we were talking, both of us were talking about. Um, and my family was a big part of that. Uncle Max built some important buildings. Uncle Henry did the electrical work on 4 of the 5 big towers, and he designed the Arlington Park Racetrack's outdoor lighting system and scoreboard himself. Um, his kids, Richie was Lenny Gravier's wife, Pauline, was a corporate headhunter. And Richie had a very early master's degree from Northwestern in computer science. financial, finance and computer science. Electronic office was Richie's what he studied and got a master's degree in. And when he got out of college, when he got finished at Northwestern, Pauline placed him with Zales, and he was the chief information officer on the installation of their point of sale system. And he did such a good job that Gordon speared him to do theirs. I got speared a couple more times before he finally went into private practice in Ohio. His sister, I'm not sure what she's doing now, but she is a programmer who was the lead software engineer on the Baxter Travenol automated laboratory in Northbrook upgrade, Y2K upgrade on their systems, on their robotics and their office systems. I mean, we had a lot of, we were Holstein cattle breeders. So a lot of the Holstein herds that came from our farm is probably still milking somewhere. My great grandfather's son was MD PhD who discovered nonoxynol, which is the world's, for ortho, that's the world's biggest selling spermicide today. Significant shit. Michael's significant story is his hip story is even more crazy than mine. I need to tell that some night, but tonight is Gene and Joan through Tommie's eyes. They never saw me as me. They only saw this monstrous child that was totally uncontrollable and explosive, and it's real hard to get me to explode anymore. It's real hard to really get me pissed off to where I'm actually pissed off anymore. I mean, I'll get a little strident sometimes, and sometimes I'll really amp it up for the sake of the idiots, but I got my bliss point. I cling to it. I end up doing very little because of that. It's like I just no, I don't want to just. I'm okay. I'm comfortable. I'm content. That's the only thing that's important to me. That's what Solomon said. That's what Solomon teaches in Ecclesiastes. It's like, okay, I have my set of adversities that I need to cope with, and chasing after anything but my own personal well-being, or chasing after anything before my personal well-being, is just vanity, chasing after wind, and goes nowhere. Shit happens and bounces back worse than you were before. And the more, I don't like to, I tell people I take it as any way it comes, and don't like to complain when it's not coming easy. Because the more you complain, the more shit happens that you're going to complain about, because the universe thinks you like to complain. So it keeps sending crap at you to complain about. So just take it, smile, give thanks for your misfortunes, and move on. I snapped a little at Alan when he called, because I knew what it was when he called. I mean, as soon as I saw the phone ring and it was him, I was like, okay, Mom's gone. And just the way he said it, and, Alan's always real upscale and jolly sounding. Upbeat and jolly sounding. They're not really all that upscale, but they're pretty comfortable. He was a civil servant and she worked in social services for a private agency. So they don't have a lot of money, but they got a lot of things from my parents' estate. And their kids did too. But I was just totally cut out, which is okay. They're things. I've learned to live frugally, and I come from privilege and excessive consumerism, and that's harming our planet, and that's not where my head's at. But they definitely, there's nothing bad really bad that I can say about either of my parents. There are a few pretty bad things I could say about my brother and sister, but I'm not gonna. They've made their decisions. They've chosen to live in the past, to see me as they fear me, and not get to know me, to avoid me and cut me off from themselves and their children and the Zygozones. Oh, I've been yammering for an hour. My parents were good people. They left the world a better place than the way they found it. They hurt my life out of ignorance that was not their fault. It's the way things were done back then and still are being done today. It's infant genital surgery for cosmetic. It's all cosmetic. There's only about 2% of the intersex infant genital surgery that's done that has any medical necessity at all to clear bowel and urinary obstructions. That's it. Everything else is just the surgeon's aesthetic, and they turn people whose gender is female into male, and they turn people whose gender is male into female, and just fuck them all up and lie to their parents about it. Lie to the parents lie to the kids if they know what was going on. And I'm sad. I really thought that when I did decide to come out and finally did just start living authentically and little by little opening up lines of communication to my parents, I felt like we could be an exemplary family of a healed uh, boomer family that was damaged by medical malpractice, but they could never come out of the past, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that they refuse to allow me to be part of the family, but that which is me is an eternal energy being that is still part of the family of the other eternal energy beings that made us us. Um, so like this will all be resolved when the kingdom is restored. None of my relatives have done anything sinful enough to cause them to not be rewarded for fulfilling the mitzvahs. Um, None of my enemies have any rights to the surface of this planet. None of them. Just according to what I know, none of you. The lucky ones will be deported intact. Enjoy Mars. Because this is the garden world. And the hippies have been going back to the garden since Joni Mitchell told us to. And the native people that we've set down our gardens next to, we're good neighbors and good friends. And do a lot of community development gardening projects together. And that's what Flory Bell Foundation, Farms Foundation is going to be. That's what Hippie Acres Retirement Community is going to be with the money that's left to me. I should be able to get a car today. I might have won it as a prize. I doubt that though. Actually, if I wanted a car as a prize, I won 2 of them. But I doubt it. It's probably going to be something just silly little, giveaway thing that I actually win. But the salesman I got on the phone Turned out to be a rock hound, and he told me to, yeah, he told me to bring some rocks with me. He's gonna bring some money for me to bring some stones that he thought I might like, that I thought he might like. And so I sent him some pictures. He hasn't. I don't think I haven't checked. He hasn't, responded to that yet. I'll check in the morning. Um, but then it's almost morning. It's like 5:30 now. Um, I haven't even considered trying to go to sleep. I'm not. My mind isn't racing, but I just don't want to lay down and go there and have those beings in my astral space that I know are going to be there. I just don't want to go there tonight. I don't know if I'll be able to. I think maybe. I don't know. My jaw's starting to get to where I don't want to talk. Um, that noise was just a notification that I probably should check. There's 10 of them. Yeah, I just got mentioned. I got mentioned twice, 3 times recently. Yeah, this was the moderator of the Just Us Hippie Chicks. I don't know how many other transgender hippie chicks are in this group, but this is all older hippie women. She, for her Happy Wednesday posting, she posted a meme of 2 women hugging. And it says it's easy to make 15 friends in 1 year, but keeping one friend for 15 years is special. And my response to that was, I could make 15 new friends in a week if I accepted even half the friend requests I get. But there are a few people left alive in my life who knew me before 1999. And there aren't a whole lot of people who have lasted as friends for more than 10 years online. And the OP says, yes, I know what you mean, but I have made some good friends here on Facebook. And my response to that was me as well, and a lot in my hometown and other places I know in the real world. And I see a lot of people bragging. I know a lot of people that, a lot of my friends are this way. Here's someone bragging about how she's been blessed, able to be blessed with 8 friends for up to 40 years. And I know a lot of people that are in their 60s and 80s, 70s and 80s that still have grade school friends, childhood friends, people they've known for their whole lives. Mine are all gone. The 4 main people in my life have been gone from my childhood, have been gone for many years now. 2 of them didn't even make it past 50. And Amber Briggle, her kid is just fucking amazing. She's got a trans son named Max who's into gymnastics. Just amazing form. I had asked her, um, have you got any videos of him? How old is he? His form is amazing. He'd give high school seniors a tough time in a meet. And she come back with, I do have videos, but because it may be easy to spot his team logo or the name of his gym, I haven't posted them. I don't know what the situation is with his school team, but he's at a private gym and private, a private league. Um, and I said, that's fucking pathetic. It won't be that way for the little trans kids and their parents coming up behind him. Let's see. Well, a bunch of people were talking to me and I wasn't paying any attention. Bruce. People giving my condolences on my announcement that mom died. Okay, that's all I need to look at there. I'm not gonna even open the troll site while this is running. Uh, and I think I'm gonna lay down for a few hours and then get up and just go straight from the bed to the shower. Put on some fresh clothes, shave, and go buy a car. um, this afternoon I'm receiving this person who I I forgot whether I talked about this guy or not. I know I wrote about him. I don't think I've talked about him. I don't think I want to either. Not right now. Another time. I'm taking in a homeless family, trying to get them housing. Right now, trying to like get them into one of the vacant apartments here before Christmas is what I'm trying to do right now. And I might have to put out the money to get them in, but they've got some kind of assisted housing thing going on. He gets a check. I forget whether his wife gets a check or not. He's disabled. He has some kind of seizure disorder, and so does his wife. And they have an 18-year-old daughter that they just rescued from her Mennonite grandparents who took her away from him when she was little. And he was born to an HA Hells Angels chapter president, and then abandoned at age 5 in New Orleans when he was down there for a heroin deal. Abandoned him in the French Quarter, and at 5 years old he was foraging for food and sleeping in cemeteries. And then the state caught him at age 7 and threw him down in a Catholic nursing home or a Catholic boarding school. And the nurses, or the nuns in the boarding school, in this age 7, were pimping him out to pedophiles. And it gets worse from there. It just keeps getting worse. I was just stunned. When I was writing about it, I was like, I called it horrific trauma. And I never used the word horrific, and I just couldn't think of anything else that could express the magnitude of the horror this person faces a boy, small boy. And, when I hear stories like that and compare it to mine, I give a lot of thanks to the Creator for having tempered the trauma in my own family the way that they did. That my parents did not inflict on me anywhere near the pain that others' parents inflicted on them, and I did not inflict the pain on my family anywhere near what people who went off on their families did inflict. And I'm very thankful for that. And I know that my parents made it on board. And I know I'm going to make it on board. And my brother and sister might get, scolded a little bit. And I know my cousins are both going to get scolded bad. But I'm not going to say why. My other cousins, my paternal side cousins, Richie and Carol were my aunts. Then they were adopted. They aren't even blood. My brother doesn't have any kids either because he and his wife were infertile. And but I'm very thankful for the pain that my family and I lived through successfully compared to the pain that others are having to face all the time, every day, everywhere. There's places where I know transgender people in the United States who cannot go to the fucking grocery store without getting things thrown at them and taunted. The amount of microaggression that's happened to me in the last 8 years is nothing compared to what people experience every week just going about their business. It's unfortunate that my parents, I don't know if my father actually did, but my mother faked it right up to the end. And I'm glad I didn't record any of that with my brother-in-law. My family, when it comes to serious issues, my family are cowards. The reason that my sister hates me so much is that my father had her run interference for him when he sold the house out from underneath me. So she took the brunt of my anger. Yeah, and here now she's handing off the difficult communications to her husband. But that's as far as sin goes, that's like meh. Jews especially is like, okay, say okay, Shekatan Lipaneka a few times, and Albino Marcano a few times, and pound your chest and make sure you do your shit on Yom Kippur and you're cool. Just don't. There are certain things you just never do. And if you're really good, you don't ever lie, cheat, steal, any of that at all. And you don't speak what's called lashon hara, which has been very difficult for me to, this in the face of what's been going on. It's very difficult for me not to speak lashon hara, which is evil words, because those manifest and become real. They cause harm, and I'm trying to get past that. I'm trying to heal from that, and I'm in the company of many people who are the same way. We're the children of the indigenous people. We are the rainbow uprising that the prophecies that have been prophesied. We are the children of all races that are coming together to break the yoke of the oppression of the oppressor, just by rising up in peaceful, prayerful do it the right way. I'm told just live according to, the way we're supposed to be, as if the world changes have already happened and these people are already gone with their unsustainable technology. So that's what I'm doing, and I've I've had so much pain and suffering in my life, and so many people have died in it. Call me cold and callous, and call me cruel for not being broken out bawling over my mother's death, and taking my father's death pretty much in stride too. We loved each other the way we loved each other, and now my body's still here and theirs is over there. That's cool. I don't cry for anybody. It's my siblings and their families for still being so badly colonized. And I think on that note, I'm going to close it out with cottage for my mother. Let's start. Oh, come on. Where does it start? I know it's in here somewhere. I really need to mark this page because it's the one I use the most. All the other ones I know off the top of my head pretty well. There it is. Yiskadav Yiskadav Shemerabah. Oh, I should really do this the proper way. Boop. I haven't changed my clothes since the Death Watch started. Traditionally I should be whipping the shirt, but this is brand new tie-dye. I ain't gonna do that. I'm not even stained yet. So, let me take 3 steps back. This is the Mourner's Cottage in the safe edition of the Orthodox Union's Art Scroll Siddur. Yiskadav Yiskadav Shemerabah. Bialma Dibra Kuruse, Biam Lichma Huse, Bechayachon Yomachon, Uchaye Dechal Bais Yisrael, Bagalav Zman Kariv Vimru Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabba Mivarach Lo Amomeo Maya. Yisbarach, Yishtabach, Yisbar, Yisraman, Yisnase. Wrong page, wrong way. V'yishadar, v'yishalev, v'yishalal. Shmei de kudisha b'rifu. Leila min kol birchasa v'yishirasa. Tushbechasa v'nechemasa. Damiran be'omad v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shmaya. V'chayim aleinu v'arkol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Waseh shalom b'mamav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'akol Yisrael v'amru amen. And may it come to pass in this closing weeks of 2021 that a world global ceasefire is declared and we enter into an era of peace and love and goodwill toward men, finally. Thanks for watching. Happy day.